Every day, Armand, a rich and busy businessman, walked past the same narrow, dark alley on his way to his office. The alley was quiet and forgotten, with old walls covered in peeling paint and broken windows. People hurried by without looking. But Armand noticed something different that day. Near the corner of the alley, sitting on the cold ground, was a small girl. She was no older than 6 years old. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her tiny feet were bare and covered in dust. Her face had bruises, dark purple marks on her cheeks and forehead. Tears rolled down her dusty face, but she did not cry loudly. She just sat there, looking scared and alone. Armand stopped. His heart ached as he looked at the poor girl. She was shaking, trying to hide from the cold wind blowing through the alley. No one around her seemed to care. People walked past quickly, avoiding her eyes as if she did not exist. The little girl's name was Amina. She had no family nearby to protect her. Every day she faced pain, hunger, and fear. She lived alone in this dark place, hiding from the world that ignored her. Armand's mind raced with questions. How did such a small child come to be here? Who had hurt her? Why was no one helping? He slowly moved closer and knelt down beside her. Amina looked up with wide, frightened eyes. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but only a soft whisper came out. "Please, don't leave me," she said, her voice barely audible. Armand felt a sharp pain in his chest. His life was full of luxury, expensive cars, tall buildings, and endless meetings. But here was a small girl who needed him more than anyone else. He wanted to do something, but he was unsure how. He looked around, hoping someone would appear to help, but the alley remained empty. For a long moment, Armand and Amina sat quietly. The sounds of the busy city felt far away here, replaced by silence and cold. Finally, Armand spoke gently. "What is your name, little one?" "Amina," she whispered again, clutching a small rag to her chest. "Where are your parents, Amina?" he asked softly. She looked down and did not answer. Her small hands trembled as she hugged herself. Armand's eyes filled with sadness. He wanted to protect her, but he also knew that saving her would not be easy. The day passed slowly. Armand could not forget the frightened girl. Every moment, his thoughts returned to her. That night, Armand sat in his large office, staring at the city lights. The image of Amina's tearful eyes stayed with him. He knew he had to do something. But how? Could a millionaire help a little girl from a dark alley? Was it his place to step into a world he did not understand? The next morning, Armand returned to the alley. Amina was still there, weaker than before. Her bruises were fresh and her clothes were thinner. She looked like she had no hope left. Armand reached into his pocket and took out a small wrapped sandwich and a bottle of water. He gave them to Amina with a gentle smile. She looked at the food for a long time, unsure if she could trust him. Then slowly she took a small bite. Her eyes brightened a little. For the first time in a long time, Armand saw a small spark of life in her. But the question remained. Why was this child alone in such pain? And who was responsible? As Armand stood to leave, Amina grabbed his hand tightly. "Please don't go," she whispered again. Armand looked into her eyes and made a silent promise. He would not leave her alone. That day was only the beginning. Armand's life would change forever, and so would Amina's. But no one knew the dangers ahead and the secrets hidden behind the bruises and tears. The journey to save Amina had just started. The next morning, Armand couldn't stop thinking about Amina. Her scared eyes and fragile voice stayed with him all night. He knew he had to find out more about this little girl's life. Why was she alone? Why was she hurt every day? The questions burned inside him. Armand decided to watch over her quietly. He didn't want to scare her away or make her feel more alone. So he chose a bench near the alley, where he could see without being noticed. Amina appeared just as she had the day before, sitting on the cold ground, her little body wrapped in a thin, worn-out shawl. She looked around carefully, always alert as if she expected danger at any moment. Armand watched as she slowly got up and walked toward a small shop nearby. She didn't have money to buy food, so she just stood outside, looking longingly at the fruits and bread behind the glass window. Then she turned away sadly and went back to the alley. Armin's heart broke. How could such a small child face this every day? No one should ever be this hungry or scared. That afternoon, Armin followed her quietly as she left the alley. She walked slowly, her steps tired and weak. She entered an old, crowded neighborhood where the houses looked broken and worn down. Armin saw Amina stop near a tall man standing in the shadows. The man looked angry and harsh. Amina lowered her head and tried to stay small, but Armin noticed the man's hand raise quickly, as if to hit her. His heart clenched. This was the moment he had feared. The girl was not just alone, she was in danger. Armin wanted to rush in and stop the man, but he hesitated. He didn't want to scare Amina more, but he also couldn't ignore what he saw. For several days, Armin watched this dangerous routine. The man was her stepfather, and every day he would shout, push, and sometimes hit Amina. The little girl had nowhere to run. Armin felt powerless. He was a millionaire, with power and money. But this cruel world was different. This was a battle he had never fought before. One evening, as the sun set, Armin finally decided he could not wait any longer. He approached Amina slowly and sat beside her on the cold pavement. "Why don't you come with me? I can keep you safe," he said softly. Amina looked up with wide eyes, her breath shaky. "I can't," she whispered. "He's my family, but he hurts me." Armin felt a cold wave of anger and sadness wash over him. How could anyone hurt such an innocent child? But he also understood her fear, the fear of losing the only family she had. Over the next few days, Armin tried to earn Amina's trust. He brought her food and blankets. He spoke gently, never rushing, never pushing. Slowly, Amina began to smile again just a little, but the danger was still there, always lurking in the shadows. One night, as Armin was leaving the alley, he heard a soft cry. He turned quickly and saw Amina running toward him, tears streaming down her face. "Please help me," she begged. "He's coming." Armin took her hand tightly and promised, "I won't let anything happen to you. You're safe with me." That night, Armin made a decision. He would use everything he had, his money, his power, and his courage, to protect Amina, no matter what it took. But the path ahead was dangerous. People who hurt Amina didn't want to lose control. And Armin was about to enter a fight bigger than he ever imagined. The secret life of the little girl was full of pain and fear, but Armin was ready to bring light into her dark world. Armin sat in his luxurious office, the city lights shining through the tall glass windows. His mind was heavy with thoughts of Amina. She was just a small girl, but her pain was larger than anything he had ever seen. For the first time, his wealth and power felt empty, without a purpose. He looked at his expensive watch and the piles of papers on his desk. Money had never been a problem for him, but now he knew that money alone could not solve everything. The question was simple, but difficult. What could he do to help Amina? How could he save a little girl from a life of fear and pain? Armin made a call to his assistant. "Cancel my meetings for the next few days, I need time." Then he started making plans. He hired a private investigator to learn about Amina's background. Where was she from? Who were her parents? Was there anyone who could care for her? The answers were not easy to find. Amina's family was broken. Her mother had passed away years ago, and her stepfather was cruel and dangerous. There was no one else to turn to. Armin felt a sharp pain in his chest. The world was cruel and Amina was trapped in it, but he refused to give up. Next, he contacted a child protection agency. He wanted to make sure Amina could be safe legally. But the system was slow, full of rules and papers that made it difficult to act fast. Still, Armin was not used to waiting. He decided to take matters into his own hands. One evening, he went to the alley where Amina lived. She was there, sitting alone and scared. Armin knelt down beside her. "Amina, you don't have to be afraid anymore," he said softly. "I'm going to take care of you." Amina looked at him, her eyes full of doubt. "Will you really help me?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Armin promised. "I will do everything I can." From that day on, Arman made a new routine. He visited Amina every day. He brought her warm clothes, food, and books. He wanted her to feel safe and loved, something she had never experienced before. Slowly, Amina began to trust him. She smiled more and even laughed sometimes. Arman saw a new light in her eyes, a hope that had been lost. But the real challenge was still ahead. The man who hurt Amina was not going to give up easily. Arman knew that protecting her would not be simple. One night, Arman received a threatening message on his phone. "Stay away from Amina or you'll regret it." His heart raced, but he did not back down. He called his security team and increased protection around Amina. Arman understood that this fight was not just about saving one little girl. It was about standing against cruelty and fear. He was ready, because sometimes even the strongest need to protect the weakest, and Arman had made a promise he would keep no matter what. Days passed quietly, but Arman's mind was never at rest. He knew danger was close. Every time he saw Amina smile, his heart felt a little lighter, but he also knew that the man who hurt her would not stop. One evening, as the sun began to set, Arman decided to take Amina out of the alley. He wanted her to see a better world, a world without fear. He took her to a small park nearby where children were playing and laughing. Amina's eyes widened with surprise. She had never seen so many happy children before. Arman sat beside her on a bench and said, "This is your world too, Amina. You deserve to be happy." Amina nodded, but her face was still serious. "What about him?" she asked softly. "The man who hurts me?" Arman took a deep breath. "I will protect you, I promise." Just then, a shadow moved behind the trees. Arman's heart stopped. The cruel man, Amina's stepfather, appeared. His eyes were full of anger and hate. "You think you can take her from me?" he growled. "She belongs to me." Arman stood up, trying to keep calm. "Amina doesn't belong to anyone who hurts her. She's safe now." The man laughed bitterly. "You are a rich man, but money can't save you here." Suddenly, the man lunged toward Amina. Without thinking, Arman stepped between them. He pushed the man away and held Amina close. "Leave now, or I will call the police," Arman warned. The man sneered but did not move. The tension was thick, like a storm ready to explode. Arman's phone beeped, a message from his security team. "We are nearby." The man looked around nervously and then disappeared into the shadows. Arman breathed heavily. He hugged Amina tightly. "You're safe," he whispered. But he knew this was only the beginning. The fight to protect Amina had become real. There would be more danger, more threats. But Arman was ready to face them all, because sometimes a promise is stronger than fear. Days passed, but the fear did not leave Arman's mind. Protecting Amina was not just about keeping her safe from the cruel man. It was also about understanding her past. What had brought her to this dark life? Why was she alone? One afternoon, Arman sat with Amina in his large, quiet living room. The soft sunlight filled the room, but Amina's eyes looked down, full of pain and silence. Arman spoke gently. "Amina, do you want to tell me your story? I want to help." At first, Amina was quiet. Then, with trembling hands, she took out a small, worn notebook from her bag. It was her secret diary. Arman opened it carefully. The pages were filled with simple words and drawings, a little girl's hope and sadness mixed together. Amina looked up and whispered, "My mother was kind. She loved me, but she died when I was very small. After that, my stepfather changed. He was no longer kind." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "He was angry all the time. He beat me and shouted. I ran away many times, but I had nowhere to go." Arman's heart broke. He had never imagined how much pain a small child could carry. "But there is one more thing," Amina said quietly. "Before she died, my mother told me to find a better life. She said there is always hope, even in the darkest times." Arman smiled softly. "Your mother was very wise, and you are very strong." From that day, Arman promised himself to be that hope for Amina. He started working on a plan to give her a safe home, good school, and a happy childhood. But the past was not easy to leave behind. The man who hurt her was still out there, waiting, watching. Armin knew the fight was not over, but now he had a stronger reason to keep going. Amina's trust and her mother's words. He would not stop until she was free. The days grew darker for Armin and Amina. The cruel man's threats became louder and more dangerous. He wanted Amina back. No matter what, Armin knew he had to protect her at all costs. One evening, as Armin was leaving his office, he saw a shadow near the parking lot. It was the man, angry and dangerous. "You think you can take her from me?" the man hissed. Armin stood tall, his voice calm but firm. "Amina is safe with me. You can't hurt her anymore." The man laughed bitterly. "We will see about that." Armin quickly called his security team. Within minutes, strong men arrived and surrounded the area. The man sneered and ran away. But Armin knew this was just the start. Back at home, Armin sat with Amina, holding her hand tightly. "I promise, no one will ever hurt you again," he said softly. Amina looked up, her eyes full of hope and trust. But Armin knew the real battle was still ahead. He contacted the police and child protection services. He worked hard to get legal permission to keep Amina safe. The days were long and full of waiting, but Armin never gave up. He also made sure Amina had everything she needed: a warm bed, good food, and books to learn. Slowly, Amina's smile returned. She played, laughed, and dreamed of a better future. But the shadow of the past still loomed. Armin's heart was strong, and so was Amina's. Together they faced the fight. A fight for love, safety, and a new life. Because sometimes, the strongest battles bring the greatest hope. The months passed, and Amina's life slowly began to change. With Armin's care, she found safety and happiness for the first time in many years. Her small smile grew brighter each day, and her eyes sparkled with hope. Armin watched her closely. He remembered the first time he saw her alone and hurting in that dark alley. Now, she was learning to trust, to dream, and to live again. One sunny morning, Armin took Amina to a beautiful school. She held his hand tightly, nervous but excited. "This is your new beginning," Armin said softly. Amina looked around at the colorful classrooms and laughing children. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. Back home, Armin continued to protect her. The cruel man had disappeared, scared by the police and Armin's security. The nightmare was finally over. Evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Amina whispered, "Thank you for saving me." Armin smiled, his heart full. "You saved me too, Amina. You taught me how to care and love again." Their bond was strong, more than just protector and child. They were family. Amina's future was no longer filled with fear and pain. It was filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. And Armin knew that sometimes the greatest wealth is not money or power, but the chance to change a life. As the sun set, they looked forward to tomorrow. A new day, a new life, and a new beginning.